And welcome back. Today we are going to talk about our value study still lifes that we're going to be working with. And we are going to be working with a ball. We are going to be working with a ball and a cone. And then ultimately we are going to be doing a larger still life. So we're going to start out with a ball, and what we're doing is we are looking at the actual objects and we are drawing what we really see. So what we're going to start out with here is this ball right here, and we are going to look at it from the view that we just put up there, and we're going to start with the things that we actually see. So we're going to start out with the ball, and we're going to try to use the majority of the page. We want to get the little shadow, the cast shadow, off to the side. So we're going to start out with a ball, and we're going to try and make it, a good size here on the page. In this case, it's going to be on the left-hand side of the page. Depending on where you're sitting in the room, it is going to change how you kind of format things on the page, just because if you're over on one side, you're going to see things a lot differently than you are on the other side. So there's the overall shape of my ball. And I'm going to look and going to say the shadow comes in off of here, and I've got a little bit of the cast shadow that comes in here, and it runs out and around, and it comes out. And we use our pencil to measure about the height of the ball. So if we do this, that means our shadow is going to come all the way out here. So put a little mark and kind of connect things like this. It's important to look to see where the proportions of everything are. So if you have the shadow too short or too long, or you have the shadow coming out of the top of the ball, you're looking at it from a different angle. If the shadow comes out of the top of the ball, that means you're looking down over the top of it. And unless you're on the ceiling, that's not going to happen. So the way we look at it, we've got a little bit of a rounded shadow that runs sort of through the middle here. And we've got a little bit of a reflected shadow that comes in here like this. So because we have a foam board down, it is going to bounce a little bit of the light up off of the foam board, and it's going to light up the back side of it. Traditionally, if you have something that doesn't have a shine to it, then it's just going to hit and it's going to be all good. So I have my light source comes down from here, so this area is going to be in highlight, and it's going to work its way down. Now as I start to shade this is a round object, so we want to kind of look at how our shadow is going to hit, and this is going to come through the other way. Depending on where you are, it might curve upwards, it might curve downwards. So this has a little bit of an up curve to it. So we're going to start to shade this, and we want to use lines that are kind of curved to go along with the shape of the ball. Ultimately, when we finish this, there is not going to be any outline around the object. We have your shape, your shading is going to create the edge of that object. So as we come through here, get the shadows put in. So this is the darkest part of it. We work through here, use our long curved lines to show this. And there's a little bit of a highlight. Then we come down in here, and these are going to be a little bit darker. There's a little bit of darkness down here on the bottom because it's the part of it that's curved all the way around. And then as it starts to come up, we start to lighten up a little bit. Now, this is something that I'm not going to be able to finish it in this short of a time span here, so I'll just get you started with this, and then I will show you the final versions of it here momentarily. But you really want to just stop and look to see how the shadows are going to kind of come into play. Depending on where you're at, they're all going to be a little bit different. The highlights are going to come out, and they're going to be a little bit lighter as they work their way through, but it's all going to be a little bit different. Now, one thing I need to add here is we've got our foam board that runs through here like this, and it's actually going to run across the page, and then on the back side here it's going to be about a little under halfway point, and that's going to run off like this. Again, depending on where you're sitting, it might be, if you're a little taller, the angle is going to be different. You're a little shorter, the angle is going to be different. You're going to see different things, so these all aren't going to look the same. So it just depends on where you're at in the room. So we want to start out with a light value. You can work your way darker. You can always make something darker, but it is difficult to make something lighter. So we're going to work this, and this is our general start of it. And for time's sake, what we're going to end up with is something that looks like this. Okay, so here is our ball, and here is our highlight comes in here. We have our shadow that comes through here, and we have our shadow that comes up this way. We've got our cast shadow that goes out across the page here with the edge of our foam board, and then we go in with a dark value around the outside of the ball, because when we look at it, it's not the same white value as the foam board or the table itself, and even the table itself can be shaded a little bit gray. And then we want this to kind of fade out, to go from this dark value, and ultimately we want it to kind of fade to a little bit lighter value. So we're going to take this, and this is going to fade from a dark all the way to our 6 that we have, and then we're going to fade this out to a little bit lighter value. When we get into the ball and the cone, same things are going to happen, but instead of just having one object, we're going to have two. So we have to look at the overall proportions of how one object comes into play with the other one. So this is a finished drawing from that, and when we look at it, we can see that the ball and the cone have a relationship. The cone is taller than the ball, so it's going to be a little bit higher here, and we've got the angle of it comes in like this. So we need to look at how all of these things relate to each other, and how the shadow of the ball is going to come over here, and it's going to interact with the shadow of the cone. The ball itself is going to cast a shadow on the cone, and then the cone itself is going to cast this little funky looking shadow over here. And then again, we go in behind and get the background drawn in, so that way that helps to emphasize this. If we look, there are no lines in between each of the sections here. We have one value comes up, that value stops, there is another value behind it, and that's what creates the edge. And that's ultimately what we want all of these things to do. And the same thing is going to apply with the large still life that we're going to do, which is going to look a little bit different every time. So we can't quite have that in the video, because every time we look at the still life, it's going to have different objects in it. They're going to be placed in different positions, and it's going to be unique. But same things apply. Look for those proportions of all of the items that are stacked next to each other. We're going to start with the thing that is closest to us, and then we're going to work our way back, because the thing that's closest is going to determine how large everything else is behind it. So good luck and happy drawing.